And I have now the pleasure to announce and introduce you to Esther Makaay, which is our VP of Digital Identity. And Esther is a very interesting person in such. She has over 14 years of experience within digital identity. And Esther is also the proud winner of Identity Lifetime Achievement Award in 2023, Esther, wow. Awarded by the ID Next community, if that's correct. And Esther is today going to speak about the EU Wallet, which is an initiative that will hit us all within the next 2 years. So this is really, really interesting because it's going to, as I said, affect everybody in this room, including the rest of the European citizens, I guess. Please give a very warm welcome to Esther Makaay.
Thank you. Thank you, nice to meet you all. Yeah, so from the intelligent robots are coming, we're now going to move to a slightly more reassuring topic, which is the wallets are coming, because they are coming. And first of all, you've all heard of wallets, you know, Apple Wallet, Google Wallets, crypto wallets. But what is a wallet? That's not clearly defined. And to my knowledge, it's an app. It's probably on a mobile device, but it could be web-based. And it's an app to manage data. And these can be assets, so it can be information or verified attributes, but it could also be transactions, like, of course, payments or data sharing. And it's controlled by a user. And more often than not, right now, that is based on an identifier. But with identity wallets, of course, we're going to move towards verified identities. And the data may or may not be bound to that user and the wallet and the device. And that is a tricky thing here. Now, today, I'm going to talk about the European Digital Identity Wallet. And I added this slide. There's a great video there. And the European Committee just started doing their communication. So I'm hoping that these slides will be shared with you. Click on these links, if nothing else. It'll give you an impression of what Europe is working on. Like I said, European Digital Identity Wallets. Member states will be required to issue a wallet with identity to all citizens in Europe and the extended European area. So Norway, for example, is included there. And that means that all EU residents will have, for free, access to a mobile eID on a level of assurance high. Now, I'm talking to Denmark here, and you all go like, what's new, right? You've got MitID. I can tell you, in a lot of countries, this is not the case. And even if you are lucky, like I am from the Netherlands, we do have a national eID, but I can only use it with governments. I can't use it for anything else. So me, as an ordinary citizen, it's once a year my tax return, every now and then talking to a doctor. That's it. So these wallets will provide all these European citizens with a high assured identity, attribute-based. And it will not only be usable with governments, but also with the private sector. Anyone would be able to use it across borders, so internationally. And it's extensible with different attributes, so it's not only going to contain your name and your date of birth, but many other things in there from different sources, and you can use or check on the qualification of those sources. So where can I get this? No, this is work in progress. I'm sorry, my sales department is still very disappointed with me because there's nothing they can ship out. But we're looking at a target launch in 2026, which is closer than you think. And we'll see the first deployments even end of this year, but they will be very beta level. And I'm expecting the first ones next year. So look at the wallet. What will happen? Just going back to the basics. You'll have your mobile phone. There's a wallet. There's an app in there. Wallet. And the first thing you'll do, and in Denmark, I know this is going to be based on MitID, is get your identity from the government. And in Denmark, probably that means logging on with MitID and having data transferred to your wallet. But that's not all. because then you can go and grab a mobile driving license, passport details, work permits, student degrees, payment cards, debit cards, but also flight tickets, concert tickets. Just think about it, and it could be in there if the user wants it. It's all voluntary based, and once it's in the wallet, you can share it with different service providers. And not just fully share it, but also disclose parts of it. So if they want to see if you have a valid driving license, you don't have to show every detail of that driving license. You can just prove that you have one. This whole development is part of EIDAS, and that's a European regulation. And it covers digital identities and trust services. EIDAS has been around since 2014, well, the EID since 2017-18, and it regulates the use of national identities across borders, but also the acceptance of trust services like signing or certificates in other countries. And think of this as, you know, if you're traveling abroad, you can use your own national passports. And if you have a notary service signed off something about you, you can use it at a different notary. And the EIDAS basically regulates that across Europe, that this is an acceptance. And you don't, right now, more often than not, if you start working or living or studying in a different country, you need to open a national or obtain a national EID there. You can't just use your local one. There's a new version coming up. We're currently waiting for the council to sign off, and then it will be published probably within a month. And the biggest difference is that this contains that wallet. So in the older version, a member state could, what they call, notify their national EID, like MIT-ID, to be accepted in other countries. But it would only be accepted by governmental services. And in this new version, every member state must provide a wallet with identity. And there will be more and updated trust services. I'm not going into details here. There's links to the legislation in the bottom if you want to use up on it. Back to the wallets. So you've got an end user with a wallet, and wallets need an ecosystem. A wallet in and of its own is pretty useless. You need organizations and entities that are willing to push data and information into that wallet upon the request of the user. And then you need service providers who are willing to use that data, who want to use that data. And last year, we've seen a lot of communication on the wallet wars and who will prevail. I can tell you the wallet is a commodity. It's not that important. It's the ecosystem that is relevant. So it's the ecosystem of organizations providing data and organizations wanting to use that data. And this is a very simplified depiction because this is what the European ecosystem will look like. There's a lot of regulated roles. This picture isn't final yet. It will be updated. There's some slight differences in it, but you can see it contains a lot more regulated roles than the one I was showing beforehand. So basically, these left yellow ones, those are the people pushing stuff into the wallet, and then the top right there, that's the party relying on that information. And Signicat will play a role in various areas here. We will both help push data into the wallet. We've got a lot of data sources connected ourselves that we will leverage. Of course, signing services will be provided, but we will also help existing service providers work with these wallets. So Europe comes with this regulation, and similar to other high-impact regulations, they have a number of ways to get this going. So first, it's a legislation. So what happens if it doesn't work? Well, it's mandatory. It's the law. You're breaking the law if you don't comply. So we've got the high-level regulation right now, and there will be probably 40 implementing acts, which is lower-level legislation describing the technology and guidance for the implementations. And we're looking at, upcoming in 6 months, the first batch. Then there's technical specifications, because this is all new technology, fairly new technology, which is also risky. So there's working groups called the Toolbox working on architecture reference framework and rule books and the likes. Then there was a call for a company, which is a consortium of Signicat and Net Solutions, to build a reference implementation wallet. Because there will be countries that say, how am I going to get a wallet? Well, the answer is download it there, add your flag, go and run with it. That's the purpose. And we just seen the first MVP release there, which is pretty impressive. Links at the bottom again. And last but not least, they're setting up funding, or they have set up funding. They're currently running 4 large-scale projects that sort of, do a show and tell of how a whole ecosystem could work. So these are the 4 large-scale projects that are currently running in Europe. We've got EWC, at top left. That's a consortium focusing on digital travel credentials and, well, try booking an airplane ticket without your credit card. So they're also covering payments to support that. And they're also looking at business and organizational identity. And they have a really large number of private sector in there, which makes it very interesting. Then we've got Nobit on down here. Maybe you've heard of it because the name was taken from the Nordic-Baltic collaboration that already existed. And they had a spin-off focusing on payments. So how can this wallet support online payments? Then there's Potential, and that's a heavily governmental-based consortium. The majority of the European governments are in there. They're focusing on a lot of use cases, but I think the main topics are the mobile driving license and governmental services. And last but not least, there's DC4EU, which has the overarching NRN organization in it, so they're focusing on education, but also stuff like social mobility. Now, Signicat is in these 2, and I looked it up. Denmark is represented one way or another in these 3, so I was amazed not to see them. They're one of the few member states who are not participating in Potential. But they're involved in the other ones, so yeah, that will be covered. Now, if you look at Signicat, we're already doing a lot of stuff. And the focus for us to participate in these LSPs is in these 3 areas. So, of course, enabling signing and sealing services that we offer also with the European wallets. Issuing attestations, issuing data, documents, information into the wallet, whether on our own authority or helping data sources open up to interact with wallets, and of course brokering to the service providers, the relying parties who want or need to use the wallets. And we'll do this for all the wallets in Europe, because even though there's one European digital identity wallet, there probably will be different dialects and varieties out there, so it's not that straightforward. Looking at some timelines, like I said, EIDAS coming into force is happening, well, this month or the next. And that means really coming into force. So 6 months from now, we're expecting the first lower level regulation implementing acts that will contain standards for the core wallet services and certification. So what should the wallet comply to? And also trust services, because it's an ecosystem. Then a year from now, we'll see further legislation on trust services, and also 2 years from now, then the member states must provide at least one EUDI wallet containing identity, and that will be a challenge. And I think for a lot of you in this room, this last line, and I will go into detail of that, regulated industries must accept these wallets by May 2027. Okay, let's dive deeper into that. So what does regulated mean? Well, regulated means that you are required either by European or national law to use strong authentication for your services. If it says you must use strong authentication, you're a target for this. It means you must accept the EU wallets as an option for strong authentication. It's not the only option. You still are allowed to use other mechanisms like the ones you're currently using, but it must be one of the options offered to your customers. And yes, you can be exempted if you're a micro or small enterprise, and there's an EU definition for that. And also bear in mind, not all transactions are authentication. Authentication is a fairly limited set. So if you're doing onboarding, AML compliance, that could be based on different aspects. It's not like you have to twist your knickers in a front to do that. There's a heavy debate going on this, so we'll get back to you on what this actually means, but be prepared. Okay, back to the timelines. First MVPs, like I said, betas end of this year, early adopters 2025, latecomers will really wait till 2026 or even drag their feet a bit longer. The current large-scale pilots will run until mid next year, probably get extended a bit, so mid-end next year. And a new round of large-scale pilots are opening soon. There will be a call out for new use cases to be demonstrated. And specifications and standards underlying this whole ecosystem will remain work in progress. And I can tell you in EWC, I'm responsible for testing and interoperability. There's a lot to still be discovered in the nitty-gritty details there. It's very interesting. Now, these wallets are not, the new stuff happening. This is part of a longer part of developments of decentralization. So we started out with, every company, every service having their own user accounts, one-on-one solution, and then we moved on towards federated identity, where you could use, your identity at different places, and MitID is an example of that sort of solution. And then people said, well, the user should be more in control, and there should be a more attribute-based exchange. And that's where this wallet idea comes from. That's the sort of natural evolution of the stuff we've been working on for 15 years almost. But it's a hype. So in 2021, Gartner pushed it right on top of their hype cycle. And I looked it up. Right now, we're sort of plummeting into the trough of disillusionment. So I'll predict to you that by Christmas, everyone here goes like, yeah, this wallet thing, it's not going to happen. It's going to be ugly. Why are we doing this? But the speed remains the same, and I predict you that we will end up there pretty soon, because it's got a lot of real good benefits, because it's not just about, logging on and proving your identity. It's also about data sharing and exchange of flexible attributes. So it's not limited to your name or date of birth. It can be anything on a verified level. However, for the near future, it's not just decentralized, because the old stuff isn't going anywhere. I mean, MitID will be around for the next decades. And I can guarantee that DigiD in the Netherlands and Neue Personalausweis in Germany will be around for a long time to come. And a lot of companies will need to still be able to work with those identities. And then there's this wallet stuff happening on top of that. So you need to be able to deal with all of those solutions, and that won't be straightforward or simple, especially in the beginning. And also, you need to know who to trust, because there will be a lot of data sources. And when it comes to maybe, buying a ferry ticket, well, it would be nice if it's, the actual ferry company issuing it. But, it's different from renting a house, or a vouching for a certification or a diploma, or showing a building permit. Yeah, and my main slide for you is pay attention and prepare your roadmap if one of these things applies to you. So if you need to be compliant, if you know you're regulated, I don't care how you feel about it, start preparing your roadmap now. Don't wait until 2027 and have to do it, all under stress and last minute. But also if you think, hey, I'd like to have these wallets as an additional authentication means, for example, because you're venturing into new markets. And right now, if you're going to a country where there is a national EID, but you can't really use it, like the Netherlands, or there is a national EID, but hardly anyone has activated, like in Germany, this could be a really good option to, cover all of Europe. Also, if you're now making costs at identifying your users and customers, if you need to check date of birth, if you're doing sort of the video identification and the selfie check and the passport reading, bear in mind that in a couple of years, there will be someone showing up with a wallet saying, hey, my government sort of says I'm real and these are my data and I can prove it, which will cut costs. I'm not saying this will cover AML KYC completely, but it will reduce sort of the bootstrapping costs there. And also, how many of you are asking your customers to share data? So, upload or a PDF or send it by email. And you get these scans and you're hoping they're sort of not tampered with and readable and stuff like that. Or if you work with online forums, where people have to fill out stuff and they make typos or errors, and there's a lot of crying to fix it afterwards. Consider using wallets for those mechanisms, because it will give you data that is transferred from the source. You can verify that it hasn't been tampered with. And in a lot of cases, there will be something called authentic sources, which are really authoritative places where you know that they are speaking the truth, and it will help you. And remember, Signicat will be able to support you in all these ways. So, time for some Q&A, I guess. If anyone has a question and isn't too shy to wait till the break, you see a hand raised there.
Anybody have a question over here?
There's a hand raised. Sorry, they need to come up to you with a microphone so everyone can share in the fun.
Is it you, Martin? Yes.
Yeah, my question is B2B onboarding then, and B2B identities, if that's in the scope on identifying that you are an employee of this company, and also the other way around, that you're being contacted by somebody from that company.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting one. We're covering organizational identity in EWC, which means that, and this is also part of the legislation, it's not only natural persons that can get a governmental identity, it's also legal persons. Now, I know there's some legal people in the room, and they will understand that for a government to issue an identity to a legal entity is not straightforward, because what are you issuing and what are you saying? So there's a lot of discussion there. We do agree, and there's also a few countries already having this operational on a federated level, that the attestation that yes, you're acting on behalf of this company and you're allowed to do so, whether it's just logging on to a service and managing, I don't know, the parking permits, or you're allowed to pay taxes on behalf of this company, or you're even allowed to sign this contract for millions of whatever currency. That should be in your wallet. That should be attested, yes. And so one of the use cases that we're seeing, not just acting on behalf of a company, but also acting on behalf of someone else, which is very hard especially if you don't have national EIDs that are accepted everywhere. But wallets make that a lot easier. even if it's within the own realm of your own, if you're an insurance company and you've got, a person that is elderly and their kids come up and say, I want to manage that, you can arrange that through wallets pretty easily. So yes, it's in scope. Actual organizational identity, though, will need some more time to mature. Like I said, what is an organization? Because in the end, a natural person can come up to a counter and you can sort of grab them. But an organization is not a physical, touchable thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the very last point you had about a signed document in a wallet.
Yeah.
Could you give an example on how the flow would be? I'm a bit confused about that.
Well, there's different flows, of course, but what will happen is the most human flow would be, I want, to sign up for a service, and they say this service is only open for students, so you have to prove you're a student. So now I need to go first to my school or university, get an attestation saying, yes, you're a student, and then show it there. Now that orchestration and that flow, there's logic and maybe some AI involved there as well, because what you don't want as a service provider is to tell everyone with a wallet, go away, you don't have the right stuff in your wallet. So you need to guide them to obtain that. And once it's in there, once you have data in there, then you can share it at multiple points. And the source of the issuing, so for example, the government will issue a mobile driving license, because typically that's a government task. But a mobile driving license also contains your identity. So if someone says, yeah, show me your name or date of birth from your driving license, you can do that without the government knowing that you're using your driver's license to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
For someone who's been close to the development of MitID or even the implementation of SCA in PSD2, I think these timeframes look silly or crazy, or
Yes,
what is the likelihood that will happen?
Ambitious is the word you're looking for.
Okay, sorry. But would you care to comment? I mean, and the specifications aren't even there yet, as you say. So what are the chances that this will happen?
Yes and no. In EWC, we've now got about a dozen wallets that are on some level of operations, and a handful that are conformant to the specifications in the ARF, which is OpenID Connect for verifiable credentials combined with SD-JOT. And the other sort of flavor set of specifications are the ISO standards, the 18013-5 and -7 standards. -5 has been accepted, -7 is on the verge of acceptance, and they seem all very workable. The real technical issues seem to be in, basically the friction that if you want to do SSI, which is all about anonymity and pseudonymity and God knows what, combined with high assured trust. Because if you're talking about high assurance, there's no anonymity. It's not like, trust me, this is zero knowledge proof. That's where the real conflicts are. And I think that's where we will need to make some choices. But we've got the first stuff working. It's doable. But to get it to a real interoperability level across all the things that you want to support, because of course, booking a plane ticket, the low-hanging fruit is in being able to share your passport number without typos. Nothing much more. Whereas if I want to do qualified signing and then not just sign with my identity, but also embed that attestation that I'm allowed to sign for this type of agreement on behalf of this company, that's a bit further away. And it's also, it needs different data, different types of linkage. Yeah.
I think we have room for one more question up here.
It was actually the same question.
It was the same question. Okay,
Yeah.
one on here. Jenny?
What is your perspective on equality on this matter, considering the different levels of digital maturity across Europe?
Yeah, and that's on both ends. So if you don't have a smartphone, sorry, you're glad that the old stuff isn't evaporating, because you need that to function. But also, there's these really brilliant discussions on, for example, if you need to check validity. So I've got this building permit here and I need to check if it's valid. There's a mechanism, there will be a mechanism for that. And people were talking about response times. And then some Italian guy stood up and said, listen, we've got 800 municipalities in Italy and 80 or 90% aren't digitized at all. So I don't care if you talk about minutes or hours. Someone needs to get into the basement, you know, find that piece of paper and send a message back. Can we make it 2 weeks? And that is the actual reality. It's on both ends. And I don't think 2026 will see, you know, perfect, great solutions. We'll see first steps of a solution that is functional, that you can have a lot of criticism on, but that will pave the way for really brilliant solutions on data sharing, on flexibility, on high levels of trust in all sorts of online transactions a decade from now. But if we don't take these first steps, we will never get there.
Great. Wow, what a perspective. A lot of news thing. Please give Esther a very big hand for her presentation here.